of the most admirable chasers you could possibly wish to see.
Hello and welcome to the Racehour Cheltenham preview. We're here now for days 1 and 2. We finally made it. It's all kicking off in earnest. There's non-runners galore. There's question marks about where horses will go. But we are going to run through days 1 and 2. It's upon us. The ground currently on the heavy side, looking at the going stick, but drying out with good weather forecast. And we're going to crack on. We're going to go through the championship races, and then we're going to go through the handicaps in order at the end. So straight into the Supreme Novices Hurdle. We're joined today with 3 guests with us. We got Gary Connolly, a regular on the Racehour, Cian Kirby the same, and Paddy Aspell, Cheltenham Festival winning jockey. We are contractually obliged to mention that, Paddy. And we start with you, Paddy, with the Supreme. Obviously, we've the question marks about Ballyburn, where will he go? Looks at the moment like he's going for the longer race. So let's say he doesn't go here. What would you fancy to win the Supreme?
Yeah, that was a little bit disappointing that you boys were telling me just now they're on the machine. It's looking like he's going to go in another direction, but that's typical Mullins bingo. I think it adds to the excitement of Cheltenham nowadays, doesn't it? As to where Willie's going to go with these multiple entries. But I mean, look, if he doesn't rock up here, it's still going to be a very strong renewal, without a doubt. Obviously, this is the only entry that stablemate Tully Hill has got, so we know which direction, if all the wheels stay on, that he's going to go. And I think after that win the last day, Willie did highlight that David Casey had really straightened his horse out jumping wise, and you could see it the way he went through the race. He's always been a strong galloper. He's got a great technique. The way he gallops, his gait is very, very natural, but his jumping, I thought, was night and day last time. Prior to that, he looked very, very ordinary. His technique, I think if the same horse was to turn up and perform as regards galloping and jumping at Cheltenham, I think Willie, even if he did defect with Ballyburn and go in a different direction here, for me, that would be my first string from Clossutton anyway, based on what he did last time, because he finally put it all together, galloping and jumping, Cass.
Yeah, and I suppose if you do fancy Tully Hill, Paddy, I mean, with the way it's looking, Tully Hill is 4-1 with BetUK, our sponsors. If Paul Townend is riding, you're probably going to be looking at more like 5-2, I would guess. So you're probably happy enough to back him now, Paddy.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is, Cass, even if Ballyburn doesn't come here, he's still maybe going to have a little bit of a decision to make. Townend, you know what it's like with Willie Mullins. It all depends, literally. Sure, we've heard the stories. Was it Duvan or Vatur? He wasn't even going on the lorry, wasn't he? It was all very last minute. I think the boys put him out in the field for 4 days, and that changed their mind. But I think Townend is still going to have a little bit of a decision to make. But yeah, for me, I think Tully Hill would represent a little bit of value. But the same horse has got to turn up again. You can't go back to his old ways of jumping, because if he did, he would really struggle here.
Yeah, you'd imagine they'll try and go from the front of Tully Hill, use the stamina here. I wouldn't be shocked to Phil Atlantique, even though he's 30 on the exchanges. Townend loves him. I wouldn't make it a million that Il Atlantique could come back and you could have a little surprise where Townend rides him.
Sorry, Cass, what did you make? I mean, I'm going to give maybe every race a bit of an Irish and an English angle. What did you make of the Ben Pauling horse? Have you seen much of Teller the name?
I think he's a long way. Like, he'd have to improve a stone to win a Supreme, wouldn't he, Paddy? That's kind of what I thought. I mean, he couldn't do it in a Grade 1 at Aintree, and I think he's beaten absolutely nothing. Lucky Place isn't a bad horse, but like he's been beaten twice in races that Django Bay was winning, and I don't think Django Bay would be winning a Grade 2 novice hurdle. I kind of think the English horses in this race could be a long way behind. Why do you give him a bit of a squeak, Paddy?
Well, he did. He completely bombed out in the Form B, but he lost his action very badly that day. He literally stopped in a matter of strides.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt his form would have to take a step up. But Keelan Woods, a fella who you hear very little from, he has said that this is the best horse he's ever ridden. Now at Huntingdon the last day, same thing. It's not exceptional form, but the way he went through that race on reasonable ground, I think this is a very, very good horse. It really is. But Ben Pauling, he was on the Nick Luck show there on Sunday just gone. He has got a serious team of horses going to Cheltenham this year. And tell her the name, obviously, because the strength in depth isn't there. I think he represents a bit of value. I'd struggle to see this fella out of the 4 anyway, at least.
Okay, and Cian Kirby, it kind of has a feeling, if Ballyburn's not here, bit of a Somerville boy or a Cinders and Ashes kind of a year. Anything could win it, really, that's in here. Anything running now has a decent chance of winning a Supreme. Cian Kirby, what were you looking at?
Yeah, it's absolutely wide open race. Doesn't look like there's any standout contender. Justin, that teller the name. He's a massive engine, but I think he's quite ground dependent. I think he needs better ground. He's pulled up on soft ground in the form being ancient, but the ground on the softer side, I say he might be a non-runner. I think of the Irish ones like Mystical Power, you'd have to maybe question his form. He's ran 3 times. That race of Punches only won last time out. Wasn't it great? It wasn't a great contest. And then his last run prior to that was at Galway. I have question marks about him. Firefox, I was a massive fan of him, but he's run the last time in the Novices of late. I don't like horses coming to Cheltenham on the back foot. They need to come in on the back of a good run. He's gone very short as well. Tullyhill, there was no talk about him for Cheltenham at all until he actually won last time out. I thought he got an easy lead out in front. They talked about him as more of a staying type early on in the season. I think in the Supreme, his jumping could come under a lot more pressure. The one I like is the Jaden McManus second string is Jericho the Rep. Now he's been up there in the anti-boss markets all season for this. He's been rock solid all year, won a point to point, won 2 novice hurdles at Newbury very easily. He reminds me a bit of kind of like a Bouvier there type, very strong traveling horse, fast pace with Supreme could really suit him. He was workmanlike at Doncaster last time. He was easy to back in the betting, but I think the form took a massive boost in the Dovecut when Lump Sum and Fiercely Proud came out and finished 1-2 in that race. I think at around 9-1, he represents a very strong each way value. And as we know with the Supreme, you can get 4 or 5 places each way in the day. I can't see him being out at the frame anyway. So he'd do for me at around 7-1.
Yeah, and like you say, I think you might get 4 or 5 places on the day here, and I think that horse will be every bit of 7, 8, 9-1 on the day. I actually backed him. I'd 40 quid at 33s in September because Nicky was just so outrageously bullish in a stable tour, and my account balance was with this crowd was down low, and I cashed out of the bet when he was still 33. So I could be sitting in a nice docket, and I'm not. I also actually backed Slade Steele, hoping that he might win the Old Delight at 25s, and I'm actually hoping he's not runner here because I don't think he's quick enough, even though he might go off 6 or 7-1. Gary Connolly, is there your angle now is often a French angle coming up with a rag, that bit of French form that could come out of nowhere? Is there anything like that in this race? And obviously tell us what you think is the most likely winner at the prices.
Yeah, so we'll do both. It's a farce, the situation we're in this race with Ballybourne. Like the stable, I'm convinced the stable well know where these horses are running weeks ago. If you follow some of the betting accounts, just follow the money and that'll tell you. But it's just ridiculous at this stage. We won't know till Sunday officially if Ballybourne's in here or not. Tullyhill will be dead against him anyway. That race he won last time, that form isn't worth the paper it's written on. It was just everything in behind was stopped or didn't run its race. So I don't like him at all. He'll go off a lot short. I think he can go off 6-4 job if Townend's dropped up. The one I did like, not the French form, ex-French one, but I thought Mr. Giff looks a bit of value there. Really impressed with him at Limerick. Travelled all over him. Mickey Mouse race now, I'm saying that he beat absolutely nothing, but just the way he went about his business. He's ex-flat, so he has plenty of pace. Really like his jump and travel through the race brilliantly, and then showed a nice. He kicked on, put 18 lengths between the second. He'll need to step up a fair bit to be winning the Supreme now, but bit of potential there and a very open look in the air. I think he's a bit of value at the minute.
Yeah, he jumped super, didn't he, Gary? He's an interesting one. Okay, look, we're going to move on to the Arkle. I know we took a bit of time there on the Supreme. The Arkle's probably going to take a bit of time as well. What a hell of a betting race. If there's 28 like this, everyone's saying it's a terrible Arkle. Give me 28 races like this any day. Like, this is an absolute cracking race to have an opinion in. And Gary, we'll stick with you. How are you looking for the Arkle?
Yeah, again, very, very open race. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a shot. Like Marine National out here, I didn't overly fancy him. I thought he would have been taking a chance backing him. I just probably can't understand the price. Quixios, is that how we brutal
Quilixios, we'll go with, yeah. The L is
Yeah,
first.
say him. He's been very solid. I done his last run there at Nice. Showed a lot. He's very straightforward horse. Has the Cheltenham form in the book. I'm surprised he's as big as he is. I thought he'd be a lot shorter in the betting, but in an open race, like there's a bit of 13-2 still on him. I think that'll do for me.
Okay, Quilixios for Gary Connolly. Paddy Aspell, it's a cracking betting race. What do you think yourself?
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, I think I've heard plenty of people say that Ilete Tom bombed out at the festival last year. I wouldn't exactly say he bombed out. Considering he done plenty wrong, he was too keen, made his move fairly sharpish that day, but still wasn't beaten very far. He was doing plenty wrong full stop last year, but he was still winning simply on pure ability. He's looked far more manageable this year round. He's a year older, 6-year-old now, Ilete Tom. Obviously, he was always going to be stretched at the trip at Limerick, and then what happened, whatever semblance of a chance he had was gone at Limerick. And then obviously got a very, very well judged ride to just have one go and nail Found a 50 at Leopardstown. I mean, Found a 50 is slightly stronger than him in the market. I'm not really sure why. He's not flashy, Ilete Tom, but he's got probably a few less chinks in his armor than one or two of his rivals here. Danny knows him very, very well now. He doesn't visually strike you as a chaser, but his technique is good. He's done nothing wrong, to be honest. I think he's a pretty solid horse and just far more manageable and rideable this time round, which I just think enhances his chance. He would probably be my strongest angle of the Irish ones. And I do think that Joe Tizard's JPR1, he is a pretty solid Cheltenham horse. He's got to get everything right now in a race like this, but he's a big lad, good, strong traveller, and he got right back on track last time when he looked maybe at a point of the season was going to go the wrong way and tail off. But yeah, it's not the strongest renewal going, but I certainly wouldn't be quick to sack this race off. I don't think it's a bad renewal at all.
Yeah, it's a good little race, I must say. Even though everyone's saying it's bad. Cian Kirby, what did you fancy in the Arkle?
Yeah, tricky race. I'm not sure if we'll ever get a champion race winner from this bunch now. Still up in the air with Willie Mullins. He could run Facile Vega, probably, and Gaelic Warrior as well. They're both in the betting, so that would change the complexion of the race. Difficult to know what he's going to do with them. But I agree with Gary. I think Quilixios is the overpriced horse in the race. Course and distance winner, won the Triumph. He's been solid over fences, really good jumper. And like we know Henry de Bromhead, when he puts them over a fence, they just improve stones upon stones. He's won the Arkle before with Put the Kettle On in size in Europe, and I think each way he'll do for me. I think at the top of the market, it's difficult to call who's better between Found a 50 and Ilete Thompson. I think with Ilete Thompson, he's been at Cheltenham twice now, and he hasn't delivered. And I just thought at Limerick his limitations were exposed by Gaelic Warrior. I'm not sure is he good enough to win the race. At JPR1, I can see the angle there, but the English form, you'd really have to question that. So at the odds, I think Quilixios is the bet in the race.
Gary Connolly, I'll put a question to you. Paul Townend opts for Gaelic Warrior and they go for the Arkle with them. What price does Gaelic Warrior go off?
I think the bookies will be out to get him, regardless. So I think there don't be much movement there. If the full runners are lined up as they are here, I'd say maybe 4-1 to field here anyway. I don't think he'll go off a silly price. There's too many negatives about him. He's one that they can get stuck into, I think, and take him on.
Okay, I think if he ran, he's a stone better than all these as a horse. Obviously, the issue's going right-handed. If Townend was on him, I think he'd go off 9-4. So I wouldn't be afraid of backing him now at 6-1. The one I've backed, and everyone's talking about JPR1, he's rated £5 ahead of him, and his form is every bit as good as him, if you ask me, is Master Chewy. I think the 25-1 about him is just too big. I mean, his form in England, second to Elixir the Nuts, didn't look much at the time. That horse won a grade 1 after, beat Nickelback by 4.5 lengths. That horse bolted up in a grade 1 after, and he went to Linkfield in the race. JPR1 won and was as good as brought down. His other two runs, he was second to Jello, giving him weight. Jello's a proper horse, and he won the handicap as well. I think Master Chewy has a bit of a chance here. If they don't get too far back, they want to ride him cold, but you can't get too far back in the Arkle. I just think he could be interesting. I think Gaelic Warrior could be interesting as well. We're on to the Champion Hurdle now. We don't have much to say. We talked about this before we came on, but we'll have to give it a token. Paddy Aspell, we'll come to you. Look, it's State Man's to lose. Interestingly enough, Iberico Lord put in there today. What's your general view of the Champion Hurdle? Can Irish Point give State Man any bit of a rattle?
Personally, I wouldn't think so. I mean, you're coming straight back down from 3 mile to 2. I know you look very, very good at Leopardstown, but wouldn't be for me, to be honest. Fair play to Connections for doing it. But State Man, I think Townend, he's gone on record as saying that he's just far, far happier with this horse this year. He's so solid, you know, and obviously it's unfortunate for him. You would say that Constitution Hill is around at the minute, but he's not going to be there next week. So it's his turn. Obviously, there's absolutely zero juice in his price, but deservedly so. Very, very solid horse. And I wouldn't be looking past him as far as the winner goes. Any sort of other angle in the race, it's difficult, Cass, to be honest. I mean, when you're looking at the likes of, you've got a 12-year-old in there, 4th favourite, Not So Sleepy, and you know, plenty of others that have just all finished behind State Man time after time. So very few angles for me here, and probably one for a cup of tea and just sit back and enjoy the race.
Yeah, I wonder with the ground drawing out towards the end of the week as it looks now, might they actually have a rethink because of Tiupu's preference for soft ground? Might they actually say, you know what, we'll put Irish Point in the longer race? He might be more likely to win, but who knows? It looks like he's coming here for now. And we're going to move on to the Mayor's Hurdle. And unfortunately, it's another uncompetitive affair with Lossiemouth, hot favourite here. And again, the panel, we all agree that Lossiemouth's the likely winner. The only thing with her, Gary Connolly, is she can throw the head up in the air a little bit and be a bit keen going. She looks a bit more attractive at Cheltenham the last day, but might be guaranteed to stay the trip.
Yeah, like I wouldn't be. I think she'll win, but I wouldn't touch her at the price that she is now. That'd be a concern for me. She can run very free. They'll be going slower here than over 2 miles. So she could get revved up, and 1 to 2 is a skinny enough price to be taken about her. She's miles clear, miles the best in the race, but at the prices no. Like I've been backing Gallagher so all year for this. Deplorable now last time. It's probably more in hope and heart and head. I've got to forgive her that run. I think there could have been a bounce factor in play, maybe, is what I'm clinging to the hope. So I think the step up and trip, she'll appreciate this trip. Lossiemouth won't, and out to 16s now. I thought 8 to 1 was value a couple of weeks ago. Double the price now, so I have to double my stakes down and go in again.
Well, God, I think there's nothing worse than doing an each way thing if you think a win portion can't work, especially if it's not a massive price. Cian Kirby, Anton here to fill the places, do you think, or an angle to take Lossiemouth on?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, I'm just looking at the exchanges here. It's Lossiemouth 4 to 6, Asher Diamond 5 to 1, 16 bar those two. So it's a very uncompetitive race. You'd wonder, would they be tempted to have a crack off? Would Richard be tempted to have a crack off the Champion Hurdle with Lossiemouth? And I mean, she'd be short enough price for that. And then they'd still have Asher Diamond would be sub 2 to 1 for this, but unlikely that'll happen. They'll probably get the 2 winners. But yeah, very, very difficult to oppose her.
I'm not sure Richie has much to say anyway. I think in that yard, JP's the only one with any say. I think it's Willie's going to call the shots, and he's going to come here and try and win the 2 races. We'll move on because the National Hunt Chase, even though it mightn't be a big field, is looking like a cracker. Cian Kirby. Most people are either in the Corbett's Cross or the Embassy Gardens camp. But there is others in there. Salvador Ziggy is getting plenty of mentions. Dermot Nolan certainly fancies him. 3-card Bragg, will he come here, will he not? You're probably only looking at 6 or 7 runners and certainly only 4 or 5 realistic contenders. What did you make of the National Hunt Chase?
Yeah, it's a decent race. Of the top 2, I think I'd be siding with the Embassy Gardens. I think Corbett's Cross hasn't looked a natural over a fence. He's poor last time out. He hasn't been great this season. He's sticky at a lot of his fences. I think Embassy Gardens looked more of the natural of the 2. But I think Salvador Ziggy is the value of the race as an each way play. And we haven't seen him in ages. He was running during the summer there at Tremor. and he was beaten in the Kerry National as Stole. Then went on to America, disappointed there, but I still think he's a classy horse. I mean, he was second in the Pertemps last season, so he has festival form. I think he can definitely have a big race to play. Just one of the massive price is Mr. Van Gogh. He's around 50 to 1. He absolutely pissed up at Exeter last month. He won by 60 lengths. I mean, if the ground came up testing, he's one of these horses for future Welsh National, something like that. Just get him out in front. He's a massive horse. He just ping fences. And if the ground came up testing, he could run into a place. Mr. Van Gogh at around 50 to 1 there.
That's kind of one I like. He's 25 to 1 with our sponsors, BetUK. Paddy Aspell, are you in one of the top 2 in the markets camp?
Embassy Gardens, I think, has looked pretty solid this time round. Really improved massively, Cass, for jumping the fence. This fella, he completely. Now, I was defending a couple of other horses here as regards. I didn't think that they bombed out at the festival last year. Now, this fella did, but he did plenty wrong as well in behind Stay Away Faye. He was plenty keen enough, got an ordinary enough run round, and it was just a horrible watch, to be honest. Totally forgettable, and I was surprised that he rocked up at Punchestown as well after, but no, he looked pretty good this time round. And again, even at Naas, the last day, stepped up to 3 mile plus. They were happy to take a lead, and he's very, very rideable. I know he was on the favoured part of the track that day, but he won by 10 lengths, and he really does look the part jumping the fence now, this fella. And really, really glad that Keane has mentioned the Bradstock horse here, because Mr. Van Gogh, this horse has got 0 miles on the clock, this fella Casson. I know people might be put off thinking, you know, he's gone around in the Devon National in Hock Deep ground just the other day, but he's gone round there in third gear, and he had them beat that far out that, you know, Ben Jones has just been able to school him round and school him home. This horse has got 0 miles on the clock, hardly a run or two over hurdles, and just a couple of runs over fences. He could be very, very interesting if the ground was to stay on the loose side, for sure.
Okay, 2 shouts for Mr. Van Gogh in a way, and 2 kind of for Embassy Gardens at the top. Gary Connolly, you in agreement?
I'll put the hat trick up. I like that Mr. Van Gogh as well.
Oh my God!
It's soft. It's just overpriced. And where he is now, it's plenty of value. I think this race will cut up now. You'll get the 3 places. He's definitely valued. There's a lot to like about that last run. He's done everything so easy. He'll appreciate this trip. If it comes up good now, it'd be a negative, but any sort of juice in it. He'll run his race. He looks solid and he looks improving. Too big a price. Towards the head of the market, I'd be siding Embassy Gardens over Corvus Cross. I don't know. I don't get stepping Corvus Cross up here. I thought it was a tired run out last year in the Albert Bartlett. I think he was well beat. I had no chance to win that. People are saying he would have went close. He was just looking for a way out, and he looked down on his feet coming down to the last. So this stepping up again, I don't think it's going to suit him. Embassy Garden, yeah, last year I'd forgive that. He bombed out. I'd forgive that run. And like Paddy, I'm amazed he ran him in Punchestown. I thought you should have put him away from the season. He looks made for fences. This sort of trip, uncomplicated ride. He'll go from the front. So off the 2 at the head of the market, him and Mr. Van Gogh for each way.
Okay. Well, I'll give the counter view. I think Corvus Cross could go off 5 to 4 here. I just think he's a class above. Interesting enough, 12 of the last 14 have had 4 starts over fences, which technically Corvus Cross has had. I wouldn't mind that too much. But I just think he's a way classier horse. I think he's actually all stamina. He stayed on really well behind Grange Clare West. Stayed on really well behind when he beat 3-card Bragg and Monty Star. That form is miles ahead of any of the form of anything else at the race. He'd like soft ground. Just think he's just by a mile the best horse in this race, by maybe £10. Embassy Gardens, has bombed out at Cheltenham before. I hate those horses, so I'd be very much in the Corvus Cross camp, and still think there's still juice in the price around 15 to 8. But the experts on the panel are very much giving a big shout to Mr. Van Gogh at a price, and are all in the Embassy Gardens camp as well. So that's day 1 done. We'll get to the handicaps at the end after we do day 2. And day 2, we're moving on. Gary Connolly will stay with you. This is the Gallagher's novice hurdle. So Nolan Liam in for a out on the Wednesday. Looks like Ballyburn's coming here, which has kind of blown this open and difficult race to talk about now, really.
Yeah, Ballybourne runs, Ballybourne wins if he comes here. I think it's probably, if he was mine, he'd be coming here anyway. I would have said this a lot earlier in the season. He looks like he needs a trip. He is speedy, but 2.5 miles perfect for him. So he'd be very tough to beat if he rocks up here. If he doesn't, it's a very good race, and there's plenty to give a chance to, like Slade Steele in Lantartique. Both very strong contenders here. I think they'll give Ballybourne a race. He just looks at a different class to them, but and if he runs here at Gidley Park, I think he should be aimed here. I think he is going to go for a longer race, but I think he's a very classy horse. He has a lot of pace. Like I've seen people just saying he looks an out plotter, but he's plenty of class, plenty of pace, and I think he could go well if they aim him here. But again, I think it's Ballybourne's race. Once he rocks up, he just wins.
Yeah, Ballyburn's race to lose. It looks like if he comes here, Paddy Aspell, do you agree?
Yeah, certainly would if he turns up here for sure. You'd be half gutted, wouldn't you, for Slade Steele if he was to turn up here. I think he deserves a big one. Ran a very, very solid race behind him at Leopardstown. Was made just to look that little bit slow, but he kept galloping, Slade Steele, and he's looked good this year. So I do hope for his sake that Ballybourne doesn't.
They might go 2 miles with him, Paddy, if they're saying they're going to avoid Ballyburn, and if you slower ground on the Tuesday, he's beaten King of Kingsfield over 2 miles at a galloping track. Maybe they go 2 miles with Slade Steele.
Yeah, you're right. We could have a bit of switcheroo, but I don't think this is a bad race at all, Cass, to be honest, or a bad renewal, should I say. Another Ben Pauling horse that I want to highlight because he's maybe in the same camp as Teller the Name. His form has got to take a big jump up here, but I think Cobden came in for the ride when Keelan Woods was banned at Huntingdon last time, and he told Pauling after he rode this chap at Huntingdon in desperate ground that he had a proper Cheltenham horse here. Now it is been quite a compact season for him. He only won his point to point. I think it was October last year. So he's fit. He's after fitting a fair bit in quite a short time. But that said, he's going the right direction. He's unbeaten. He might just, I won't say go under the radar because he's 12-1 there, but so many of these UK horses are going to get overlooked. But he's another, I think, from a very strong team of Pauling horses that we definitely worth his place there for sure.
Yeah, he was very stylish, wasn't he? Beating Django Bay, even though he was getting weight, I think he would have beaten him regardless of the £5. Cian Kirby, any view on the Gallagher's Novices Hurdle?
Yeah, Ballyburn's an absolute certainty. I mean, Woody Mons won the race the last 2 years with Sir Gerard and in Perret Pass. Bold impressively. I think this level absolutely bowled up. Anything around even money is a great bet. I was surprised they were thinking about the Supreme. He's always looked like a middle distance horse, and they've talked about him as a future Gold Cup course. So I think this is the right race. Interesting that Mystical Power is still in the race. I suppose maybe if McManus has Jericho to represent for the Supreme, would they be tempted to run him here and split them up? I'm not sure what the plan is there. Slade Steele, I'd say he'll go for the Supreme if Ballyburn comes here. But yeah, I think Ballyburn is just he's by clear the best novice in UK and Ireland we've seen this season, and I think he'll take all the beating here.
Ballyburn is top industry price with our sponsors BetUK 4-5. I would say he'd be going off a bit shorter than that, so probably not a bad bet. If you want to do if on the off chance Il Atlantique went back Supreme, you're getting around 30-1 the double Ballyburn for this, and Il Atlantique. I reckon if Il Atlantique went back, Townend would be riding him, so that could be a sneaky way of doing something to get in, and that's with our sponsors as well. BetUK, you're 29.6-1. I'm going to put up a rag. Traditionally, always try and find one around 500-1, and we have one here. I spoke to Joe Chambers. He's going. They're both going, Mercury and O'Moore Park. But I thought O'Moore Park was really impressive when he won the last day. He initially started out at Fairy House. He was beaten by what was it, Fairy House or was it Clonmel? But he was beaten by Shigar and that thing of Henry Bromheads, who'll probably go for the Albert Bartlett. Didn't quite stay to the 2.7 that day, went back to 2.5. And the horse he beat has won since and is rated 129, I think. So, and he absolutely hammered him. So he's probably already ran to 140. Wouldn't have that much to find to improve to win a normal edition of this if he got up to around 150, excluding Ballyburn, and he's 400 on the exchange, and he is going, I'm told. So he is around 100 to 1 elsewhere. So that's O'Moore Park. Maybe he'd have a squeak if you're looking for a wild one, which I like doing. The next race is Dean Ryan's favourite one. He's all year talking about Fact to File. He's odds on now, 10 to 11 Fact to File. Stay away phase trees. Grey Dawning may go for the shorter race, 11 to 2. And Monty Star, Dermot Nolan's big shout out. He had him in newspapers. He had him on here, 50 to 1 in fairness to Dermo. He's got a good bet going for him there. Not a very strong looking Brown advisory, I would say, Cian Kirby. What do you fancy?
Yeah, it's basically a question: do you believe the hype around Fact to File or do you not? Because there's no way on form that this horse should be even money. He's obviously beaten in the bumper last year, was very well back for that bumper. They went straight over fences with him, skipped hurdles. Was disappointing first time out now against American Mike, you'd have to say, but he bounced back well after that. But the 2 races he's run, you'd have to be question marks over him at Leopardstown. I mean, Christmas wasn't much of a contest, and then the last day it was obviously Gaelic Warrior didn't turn up, so you have to question the form. And I think even money it's all around hype as opposed to what's in the book. Stay away, Faye. I don't know, but I'm not sure about him. I mean, he's been good. He was good at the festival last year. Then went on to Aintree, was placed. One at Exeter, beat Grey Dawning, and then at Sandown he beat Giovinco. I mean, that form doesn't look particularly great. And even last time out, he stepped him out of novice company. And I mean, that race, the Cotswold Chase, he finished third. I mean, if he was going to win this race, he should be winning that, or you know, getting a good bit closer to what he did. I actually think, yeah, Monty Star probably is the play in the race. I think there's only going to be 3-4 runners who actually have a chance of place, and I think each way there he's around 5 to 1. He did disappoint at the festival last year, but like Alba Bartlett is a race where horses just don't perform. He ran in that good beginner's chase behind Corbett's Cross of Fairy House and Tree Car Bragg. And then he won well. Next time out, he really turned the form around with Tree Car Bragg. Hasn't ran since then. That was the end of December. I mean, decent form. He hasn't had the chance to show how good he is over fences yet. As I said, Henry Bromhead's horses, when they switch from hurdles to fences, they do tend to improve a lot. And I think as an each way selection, if Fact to File isn't as good as they say he is, I think Monty Star could be pinging fences behind him, and I think he could pick up the pieces.
Okay, and I think you have to back him now, don't you, Cian? Because I think you're looking at 5 or 6 runners here. You're getting a 50 odds 1, 2, 3 with BetUK, and Monty Star's 11 to 2. So kind of looks like a very good each way bet to do now, or to do each way multiples, or whatever way you want to look at. Paddy Aspell, I'm going to put it to you. Fact to File, I think he hung up the straight at Cheltenham at the bumper, and what no one's talking about, Lydia Hislop mentioned it, I heard her on a podcast. She's the only person I've heard say this, but I thought he jumped markedly right when he got to the front. Now, I don't mind a horse being led by Gaelic Warrior and jumping right, but when he got to the front, he was in the back straight, he was jumping right, and he jumped disastrously, like hugely right at the last at Leopardstown the last day. He's on the old course here. Am I overthinking it, or do you just believe the hype and think this fella's far too good?
I do think ability-wise he's far too good, and yeah, visually he was going right a bit at Leopardstown, wasn't he? And it's contagious though, Cass, isn't it? Like, you know, horses, they are very like sheep in that sense. But it was just the sectionals to say it was a match race at Leopardstown. It was what he did throughout that race. And you remember going away from the stands at Leopardstown, he half sort of went and joined Townend, didn't he? I thought it really, because Gaelic Warrior's a horse who puts a lot into his racing throughout, a lot with his jumping. You know, it's a big effort thing for a Gaelic Warrior. And when he went up sides him, running down the hill and turning down the back, he really did switch Gaelic Warrior on a bit. And you could see where Mark Walsh, he took him back again. You know, but for a horse that does stay, he's got an awful lot of speed. And I mean, he was good on the clock, considering he ended up, you know, he was on his own the last 2 fences, because the engine cut out very, very quickly with Gaelic Warrior. Gaelic Warrior didn't even have the energy to get over the last fence. Now, I know he did that little bit of a nod, didn't he, at the fourth last, and that seemed to be where trouble started for him. But yeah, so he was on his tog then the rest of the way, Fact to File, and he had a little bit of a guess at the last as well. Just don't think he was doing an awful lot. He's a hard horse to weigh up. He really is. I think in the bumper last year, Cass, I thought for a horse that's a real stout stare, I just thought they rode him a bit too cold. You know, I mean, he has finished second behind the winner twice, A Dream to Share, but I just thought for a horse who had proved he'd won over 2.5 simply by pure stamina in his bumpers leading up to Cheltenham. I just thought they rode him a bit cold that day.
I agree with that, yeah.
You know,
Ground was bad by then, though, Paddy. I suppose maybe and he was in front of A Dream to Share or upsides with him. But yeah, I know what you're saying there, definitely.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But obviously, Willie, he always has made plenty of racket about this horse. It's a hard one to weigh up. Obviously, they've taken the Florida Dream route with this fella, haven't they? But I just thought the fact that he was given such a lovely introduction, I know many people mightn't agree, at Navan, it really could have been the making of this horse, because they didn't empty the tank on the first day over fences. And since then, he's done nothing but progress. I think he's very, very solid here. I mean, Stay Away Faye could be the flying the ointment here. He was made to look a little bit slow last time, there's no doubt, but this horse is very, very slow, but he's very capable as well, as he showed in the Albert Bartlett last year. And he does have some beautiful form, Stay Away Faye. It's interesting, you know, when he made his debut in a point-to-point, beat Monty Star 6 lengths, Stay Away Faye, and went to Cheltenham last year off the back of getting beat at Doncaster. And I remember Nichols was pretty furious that day with Lorcan Williams, simply because he went to challenge between two horses. I mean, this is how raw this horse was. He didn't want him to do that, but he still rocked up next time and won at Cheltenham. And he was beat at Aintree. And there's not a great deal of depth to that Sandown win over Giovinco, because Giovinco, for me, he's a proper bridle horse. He really needs dragging into a race. And he's got to shake off that ordinary effort last time. But he's another one hard to judge. Hard to know how deep you're dipping the tank with Stay Away Faye. He's a hard one to read. So I think it could be a proper match between these two here. Two very similar candidates for me. And the only other one that I just wanted to give a quick mention to at a bit of a price, if he comes here, was Sandor Clegane. That's if he comes this way. I think poor old Paul Nolan, again, he's had a fairly ordinary season, but he's got a very, very solid horse here if he turns up. But for me, he'd only be picking up maybe a bit of minor money. But I think it's a proper match race between the top two in the betting here. And honestly, I can't decide either way. Two very similar types.
Yeah. I think Sandor Clegane will definitely run. It's his only entry, and he ran very, very well at the Cheltenham Festival last year, only beaten a length and a quarter by Stay Away Faye. So he does look like stamina as his forte, so maybe a bit of soft ground. And I don't think it's as difficult a race as everyone says to win. Stay Away Faye, Paddy, he jumps very slow is my problem with him. He might be all stamina, but will he get too far out of his ground? Gary, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm a believer in the hype. I think Back to File's the real deal. I went out to Navan. The fourth run from me was fat as a fool in the ring. So no shame in losing. American Mike is a solid stick first time out, and he's just been so impressive the last two times, particularly on the clock. The last time, I know, match race and Gallic Warrior done what he done. He broke his heart. Like, I think he does everything easy. Tactics wise, there's no issues. You can put him where you want. He jumps very well. A bit out to the right, as you did say, but yeah, I think he's the real deal, and he is short enough. Like, odds on, it's probably one for the put in with Ballybourne and then Fabiola later for a treble, and I can't see the three of them losing. So yeah, I think he wins. Like you mentioned as well, Sandor Clegane was the one for each way for me. I think he's been aimed at this race all season. He is very solid, stays well. You need to brush up his jumping a bit. It'd be good to see Paul Nolan get a decent horse again. Well, this one might get to the heights I thought he would have when he won his bumper first time out now. But he's very solid in this race. I think this race will cut up badly again. And he's a decent price at the moment, and I think he'll be banged there, fighting out the places at the death here. But Fact to File, tough beat here.
Okay, Fact to File, tough to beat. And Sandor Clegane, a couple of shouts from Gary and Paddy. He's 18-1 with the three places, and I think we'd reiterate again. You'd probably want to be back in that now, because I think there could be 5 runners in the Brown Advisory. We're moving on to talk about the highlight of day 2, the Queen Mother Champion Chase. Always one of the most entertaining races at the festival. Gary, you kind of said you think El Fabiola is going to win. What do you think is going to happen in the race between? Will Edwardstone make the pace? Do you give John Bon a squeak of recovering himself?
I hope Edwardstone makes it. It's the only chance he has to win, but Alan King is just a weird guy, like for giving jockey instructions. Some of the rides his horse gets are just perplexing. Like, it makes all the sense in the world to bop him out in front and try and force a mistake out the other two. But back of my head, I just wouldn't trust him to do that. I think El Fabiolo, the only way he's going to get beat if he force a mistake into him. He does hit a fence. But I think he's just way too good for these. John Bond, it'd be a new, different John Bond than we saw last time. That was an absolutely brain dead ride. I don't think enough was made of how bad a ride he was given last time by Bowen. Like, he'll get close to him, but I just think there's a massive gap in talent between John Bond and El Fabiolo. One I thought maybe if the aimer here was Moscada at a price. Get probably triple figures. If she goes here, I think she ran well in the Grand Annual last year, beat Dina Blue. She hasn't been great this season, but I think the makeup of this race could suit her. Course and distance form is there. Just at a massive price, she could nick a third place here, but can't see El Fabiolo getting beat. She maybe get third. That's all I say.
El Fabiolo for Gary Connolly. Cian Kirby, are you of a similar view?
Yeah, it's difficult to see El Fabiola get beaten. I mean, he's obviously very impressive in the Arkle last year. Hasn't been beaten for a good while now. John Bond was very bad last run, jumping, just put the brakes on. He was bad at his prep run prior to the Arkle last year, and they said he didn't run up to scratch in the Arkle, but I don't think that El Fabiola is just a better horse than him. It's as simple as that. But 1 to 2 is short in a champion chase. I mean, we've had a lot of blowouts in this race. The likes of Duvan, Undersow has been the odds on as well. A lot of horses get beaten here.
Definitely
Desoy as well, yeah. I think Edwardstone, yeah, as an each way play, I think as Gary said there, they have to bop him out and make the run. If they don't, it's just crazy. And I never rated Edwardstone, but it actually would give him a chance of winning the race if they apply those tactics. If he's held up, he's absolutely no chance. If he gets into a rhythm like he did at Newbury, where he's out in front and he's putting John Bond and El Fabiola under pressure, I'd give him a chance. And I think, yeah, maybe hold off your bets until you see the jockeys down at the start, and if he's out in the front, maybe back him, and if he's look at the back before the start, maybe hold off. But yeah, Edwardstone definitely has a good each way chance if they make the run with him.
Yeah, well, he'll have Gentleman to Me in there making the run with him. That could be interesting to see. Gentleman to Me's actually never got a chance to make the run at Cheltenham and see what happens there. So it'd be interesting to see how him and Edwardstone go from the front and what it does to the shape of the race. Paddy Aspell, I've heard your views on John Bond many times. You're a big fan of the horse. Do you give him any squeak of beating El Fabiolo?
Well, I'll be honest, Cass, he has surprised me, the sort of mistakes he's making, because I always thought this John Bond was the other way a little bit. I mean, we've seen him last year at the festival. He was just careful and deliberate, wouldn't let himself down. Like, this is one horse I never seen stepping into the middle of fences as what we did last time. Now, I know Nico is going to be back on for this race, which, you know, is a positive. He's had a better experience on the horse, so maybe he is going to jump better. But you know, he definitely gave himself a proper old fright. He done well to keep himself off the floor last time. And let's not forget, so much that he did wrong. He wasn't beat very far. I know it was Elixir the nuts, but he's a capable horse on his day, and he's going to punish you when you're making howlers like that. But an awful lot went wrong, and you know, he still ran a fairly solid race. But I'm surprised that such bad mistakes have crept in. Who was jumping. I wouldn't look past El Fabiolo, to be honest, Cass, because yeah, he's a touch ignorant, but I think if he can campaign round these Irish tracks all winter, you know, it's a far stiffer test jumping wise than what he's going to have at Cheltenham, and he still gets away with it. The back end never comes up that high and his sheer power gets him to the other side. So he's got it down to a fine art, El Fabiolo. He's going to nudge one, but you're fairly sure that this fella is going to get a leg out. So I wouldn't be against him winner-wise. It's difficult to know what they're going to do here with Edwardstone. We can't just say, oh, brilliant, Edwardstone's a front runner now. I mean, that was barely a horse race at Newbury the last day. It was heavy ground, and Editor de Geet came out, and Calico. There was no pace in the race. I'd be pretty convinced that Alan King and Tom Cannon driving to Newbury that day had no intention of making the running. It was just by default that's what they ended up having to do, cut out their own running. They got an absolute freebie in front. Now he put in a beautiful roundy jumping, and he had them mullered by the time they even jumped the cross fence, because Tom Cannon was that far clear. He was able to fill him up the whole way from turning the last down the back to the first in the straight, and away he went again. Now he looked really happy in himself, the old horse, and mentally he's probably in a good place here. But there's going to be pace here. So if they want to go and employ the same tactics, they're going to be going a right old lick here. Now, I don't think they have to make the running with him. I just think they've spent that long trying to slow him down in his races. He has made errors, and he was horrific at the festival last year, but so far this year he's been doing okay. I think if that Newbury race was 3 months ago, it's just a recency bias here, I think, a little bit with Edwardstone. If that was 3 months ago, he put in a performance like that and he was rocking up next week, I don't think we'd have him as high on our list. So I'm not so sure about Edwardstone if he's a confirmed front runner here. So I'd have El Fabiolo for sure for the win, and try to look for something to pick up the pieces here. Well, I suppose if Nico can get a sweeter roundy jumping on John Bon, and his confidence isn't dented after what he did the last day, because he must have a fair bit of jumping ability to stay off the floor after what he did last time. But the negative for me though, Cass, is Nicky's horses. I know he had a winner up at Kelso the weekend, but when you see so many of the runners pulling up, that's always a worry. It's a worry. I mean, horses getting beat is one thing, but not finishing the races for me is another thing. So that's a negative. You'd like to see him maybe have a good weekend. That would have you a bit more confidence. So no, El Fabiolo for the win, but I really am intrigued to see what they're going to do with Edwardstone tactics wise.
Yeah, I think pace-wise, Paddy, I mean, you're going to have Gentleman to Me, Editor G if he runs. I think you have to run Edwardstone handy. He can't take a lead, though. Won't have to be in front. They're going to be going a million. I kind of think John Bon, geez, there's every chance that race the last day could leave a mark on him. He could have been, maybe slightly injured or whatever, or have a niggle after that awful mistake, and he had a very hard race. So I think El Fabiolo's jumping frailties have been overplayed this year. I think he's jumping a lot better. It's going to be run to suit. He's going to win, and then in the without market, I'd be mad keen to take on John Pond. Maybe Gentleman to Me will be going so fast they'll all break, and he can cling on for second at a wild one in the without market. That might be something I do, but I wouldn't be married to that either. I'll have a good look at it closer at the time. We'll move on then to everyone's highlight of the week, the cross country. Cian Kirby, we'll come to you first. Have you any interest in this?
Yeah, I think Manila Indo's short enough now at 2-1. I wouldn't be getting involved at that price. So what I like is actually Coco Beach. He's just been so solid this season. Was placed in the Munster National down in Limerick, then went on to Navan, won the Troytown, second in the Beecher, and then last time out he won at cross country chase at Punchestown. I think that's really solid form. I mean, and looking at it now, there's only really four significant runners when you look at the betting. I think it's 25-1 bar the top four in the betting. I mean, each way I can't see him out of frame. I think
he's going to love that soft ground.
Yeah,
the cross country track by all accounts is heavy, and it'd be very hard for it to change, I would say.
Yeah, and he loved that. Like, I mean, ran a screamer in the Beecher was just touched off there. I think he's a great bet there around 5-1 to take on top of the market with.
Very good, and probably an each way angle you could do there, especially with only 3 or 4 in with realistic chances with Conflated going for the Ryanair. Gary Connolly, the cross country, I don't know, is it your bag?
I do like the race. I don't like what's turned into the last few years. Realistically, I only think 3 horses can win this. I don't think Coco Beach is as classy as the other 3. So Gallagher, Delta, Walk, Manila, Indo. Minella does plenty short now. I don't think there's much difference in the three. So based purely on price, Galvin has to be the bet. I tell you, I like this running the boy in hurdle, set him up for this. He just finished out his race well, wasn't knocked about, should leave him spot on, course form. Like he's going to be bang there coming to the last. The three of them are going to be bang there coming to the last, but he's the bigger price, so he's the bet for me.
Okay, the 10-year-old Galvin. I would have thought he had a bit of a preference for a bit of better ground, Gary. No, he'd be okay on the ground, do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be too bad.
Class angle there anyway. Yeah, and Paddy, what do you think of the cross country?
Yeah, tricky one. Because you heard Ruby saying they're not even allowing people to school round it. The ground has been that bad, and they're waiting for it to dry out. So it's going to be hard to work this. I mean, obviously Gordon's got plenty of classy ones in here, but a lot of them are ground dependent both ways. To be honest, there's no doubt. I do like a horse coming into races like this. You know, the likes of this and a national off the back of a good hurdles run. So I think Galvin definitely would have went into plenty of notebooks the way he went through the Navan race. But I thought, Foxy Jacks was an interesting one here. I mean, he isn't pretty jumping a regulation fence. He does struggle, there's no doubt. And he's not an easy watch at times, but he has had a bit of luck around here, Foxy Jackson. He's another one. Cass comes here off the back of a really, really good run behind Gay Kuhl last time over hurdles. And, you know, he looked like he was going to pick up plenty of money until just laid on in that race. Hard to judge Mouse's form. He's had literally zero runners in recent weeks, but he's a top man, you know, for setting one up for races like this. And yeah, Foxy was on his best behaviour here, jumping wise, with Gavin Broder on board. It needs a brave man to ride this horse, because he isn't he just isn't great on his feet the whole time. But because he's got a bit of previous round here, if he wasn't to get much shorter than round about 14s, definitely think he's worth a little go.
Okay, I'd say I'll be in the Foxy Jacks myself for that race now. So Foxy Jacks for Paddy, Cocoa Beach for Cian, and Galvin for Gary is the panel selections. Paddy, will stay with you. The bumper looks wide open.
The bumper's a cracker, Cass. It is a race I do quite enjoy. Really, really is one of them races where, you know, you've got the bulk of these are going to go here with one run. They're open to any amount of improvement. Very, very top heavy. Gordon and Willie Wise up the top of the market. I think Tishan is the best of the English. I wasn't that taken visually with what I saw of Tishan, and you know, it isn't really an avenue that Nichols ventures down too often, is it? The Cheltenham bumper, but apparently he was very good on the clock when he absolutely hosed up in his point to point. Won by I think it was 49 lengths. Tishan. I did watch the video of it. But I thought the horses in behind in the bumper, I know it's not his fault, when he made his debut for Nichols, looked very, very slow, albeit desperate ground. But they're coming here, which is interesting. Ruby gave this Argento boy a fair shout. He said he's a horse that can't get out of his own way at home. But on the track, he looked very, very good. But I thought another one of Willie's here was the Say to Chance that was second at Navan behind the Barry O'Connell horse. I mean, obviously he's franked that form, hasn't he? And you know, they had a nice gap on from the third that day, and did a proper nip and tuck Navan, and he just came out on the wrong side of the verdict that day. But what Barry O'Connell's horse done, William Money at Naas last time, that gives that form a fair bit of a boost here. I'd say it's a proper nightmare for Willie Mullins to, or you know, even the jockeys to choose here. But I thought he was certainly worth a look at round about that price. And I do think that if the St. John Joe's horse win very, very well, Mr. Megget, if he turns up, he's looked pretty good at Carlisle and Donny the other day. It was a non-event at Donny, but God, he went round in a hack canter. And again here, Cass, just want to give a quick mention to it, the Ben Pauling horse, 6 Mile Bridge, won at Sandown on his debut. Now, he actually said that this horse was not scoping, but his track washes weren't good all season. That's why it was so deep into the year before they got a run into him. And even going into the Sandown race, that he still wasn't clear in his track wash. But he just said to the owners, look, we've had this horse in training that long. we've got to run him. Otherwise, he's got to go in the field because they're not making any headway. But he went and won, and then he says since the run that he's now clear on his track wash, which I know it mightn't make people might know what that is, but it's a big part of horses, you know, hitting a race right if they are clear on the track wash with their airways and whatnot. So he could be an interesting one. He's going to be there at a price 22-1. I like the way he went through the Sandown race. He's got a bit of pointing experience as well. But I thought the pick of the Willie ones for me here was Sated Chance, but it's a real good renewal for sure.
Okay, very interesting. I was actually on a preview panel with Frank Hickey, who a lot of listeners will know, and he gave 6 Mile Bridge a huge chance. He was wildly impressed with him. I'd never even heard of the horse. Watched back the Sandown race, and he was impressive. But these UK bumpers, it is hard to tell. In fairness, Cian Kirby in the bumper. I should have ran through the betting at the start of this one. Jasmine DeVoe was 11-2 at BetUK. Jalon Duderi 6s, Tishan 7s, Romeo Coolio 8s. Along with the Yellow Clay, who everyone seems to have seen running on well at Leopardstown. You ought to know as 9s, and it's 12-1 bar. Cian, anything from the top of the market there, or any rags taking your fancy? It looks wide open.
Yeah, absolutely wide open. I mean, it's, as they say, it's tough to gauge how good some of these bumpers are even in the UK and Ireland. Of the top of the market, I was most taken with Jasmine DeVoe and Ace last time out. I thought he looked like a proper machine. I think he won by about 15 lengths. I'd be surprised if Townend didn't pick him now. I could see him going off a lot shorter than 5-1. And then just as an
Townend definitely won't have the pick here anyway. You know, Patrick will have pick.
Sorry, Patrick, I mean.
And Jasmine DeVoe, is he double green?
He's double green, yeah.
Yeah, and I wonder then, I presume after that then probably Jacob has the pick if it's double green, and then Townend. So you could be Townend could be an Argento boy as a third string kind of a thing.
Yeah, and they've saved the chance in the same colours of double green as well. So interesting to see the jockey bookings. I mean, they'll tell a lot, and the market will move after them as well. And then just one at a massive price. I know we mentioned the John Joe Neal train, Mr. Mega, but he also has in here is Bill Joyce. Won his point to point, then won well at Warwick next time out, and he ran an extra last month. Was very well backed and beat Paul Nichols trained Joyu LN, who's a half brother to Envoy LN. He absolutely hammered and beat him by 8 lengths. Again, it's hard to gauge how good these bumpers are, but I just thought he's around 33-1. He could outrun his odds and Nick plays.
Yeah, I'm going to roll in with you with Bill Joyce. I think Anthony could win it this year, and he has been pretty good on both the starts. And Joyo Lellen had been very good the time before that. So I wondered if they run Mr. Mega thinking they had a better one at home. Sheer speculation, but sure, he's a mad price, and he'll be a huge price on the day. So I'll run in with Bill Joyce. And finally, and the bumper, and finally for the championship races over the 2 days, Gary Connolly, what do you fancy here?
Probably going to get accused of stealing Paddy's homework, but yeah, both the ones he mentioned, I really like Mr. Mega for John Joe. Just been super impressed with him. Both runs this season, like he's just doing it so easy. I doubt he goes. That's the only
he won't.
They probably keep it for Aintree, but if he was to rock up here, I'd like him. And then Sets the Chance. I actually backed him before he ran at a shorter price than he is now. So really good bumper, really solid. William Money came out and Frank the Farm, 2 of them booted clear up a stiff nice hill. And he's probably, I don't know, he was a bit unlucky. Another day he would have got the bob on that. I just can't believe he's still the same price. I'm hoping Paddy's on Jasmine, and like I'd much rather Darryl Jacobs or Townend or someone on this lad. Like he impressed me a lot that day. It's the strongest bumper form on offer, and just can't believe he's the price he is. So I'll be going in again on him.
Okay, very good. A couple of what's the horse's name again? I wasn't on my radar now at all. What's that horse's name again? Sated Chance. Okay, a couple of shouts for him. A shout for 6 Mile Bridge and a shout for Bill Joyce at a big price from Cian Kirby. We're going to go on to the handicaps now, and we'll go back to the Tuesday. One of the races of the week always, the Ultima. We have an Irish horse favourite for it this year, bought into by JP McManus after David Mullins bigged up the horse on the Racehour preview, available on YouTube. Cian Kirby, do you fancy one of the Ultima?
Yeah, if anyone listened to the Racehour preview, David Mullins said that Meeting of the Waters is good enough to run in a Gold Cup next year. So if you believe him, then 5-1 is a big price. Obviously, JP McManus has bought him now. But the Irish have never won this race, and I think Willie Mullins has never won a handicap
Ah,
chase
no,
at
the
the
Irish
Cheltenham.
have won this race.
Have they won it?
Oh, they have to have. Dundera won it, didn't he?
Or do they have a very bad record in it? Isn't that it?
Very poor record.
Very poor record,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
hasn't Willie Mullins never won a handicap chase at the Cheltenham Festival? Is that?
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. So just those couple of factors, you probably make him a short enough price, just on form. I think Kim Bailey usually has one lined up for this race. Remember years ago that Happy Go Lucky was a huge gamble in the race. I know he didn't deliver now. He was beaten by Vintage Clouds. But I think Chianti Classico is rock solid. This has been his target all season. David Bass is going to have him up there from the front. I think soft ground, 3 miles around Cheltenham looks tailor-made for him. He's a very good novice hurdler. He's been even nearly as good at put over fences. And I just think this track and tripping ground, everything's in his favour. And as I said, Kim Bailey will have him cherry ripe for the race.
Yeah, he looks like the kind of one Kim Bailey can plot up for this race, and he's very good at it. And he's a gorgeous looking horse, Chianti Classico. I kind of agree with you, Cian, but I think he's eighth now, and there's Willie Mullins' favourite, a Gordon Elliott thing in there. Cromwell has one up in the betting with Stump Down. I think you could wait for Chianti Classico. You might get much better, certainly place terms on the day than the 8-20 currently is at BetUK. Before I go to you, Paddy, there, Meeting of the Waters 5s, the Goffer 6s, Chianti Classico 8s, Giovinco 10s, Stumptown 10s, Theatreman 10s, and 14-1 bar with our sponsors BetUK. Paddy Aspell, what do you make of the Ultima?
Yeah, he could be a proper handicap blot, this horse at the top. Very, very interesting that JP has got ownership of this chap now. Obviously, we didn't get a look at him last time. He checked out pretty early, didn't he? Meeting of the Waters, and he looked very, very solid prior to that at Leopardstown. You know, for a horse, really, for a 7-year-old again, who hasn't an awful lot done, I think he's very solid. Wouldn't like to see him get much shorter, though, because, like I say, the UK or the Irish trainers, you're absolutely bang on there, Cass. Dundera was the last winner of this race, and it tends to be a UK winner. Chianti Classico, Kim Bailey, I think numbers wise, he's had an ordinary enough season. Good start, but this year, I know he had a winner at Doncaster the other day, but that was a horse, sort of a very classy horse, revitalised with a bit of headgear. But winners have slowed down, certainly since the turn of the year. And I thought when I checked the other day, Lucinda, obviously last year's winner, Corrick Rambler, I know he had plenty more weight on his back, but he had such a similar profile coming into the race last year, because he was the real eye catcher, wasn't he, down at Newbury prior to running this. And then obviously he was a real eye catcher at Haydock last time. But I wonder, are they going to hang fire for the national with him? I don't see him in my betting here now.
What horse are we talking about, Paddy? Sorry.
Corrick Rambler, last year's winner.
Oh, he'll run in the Gold Cup by all accounts.
Gold Cup, yeah, there you go. Yeah. But she's still got Apple Away and Giovinco. I was riding out with Steve McQueen the other morning, and he's convinced that Giovinco is better at shorter, because he's such a strong traveller, helps him settle and just drags him into a race a little bit. And he had to win ugly a little bit up in Newcastle the other day, but he's a very, very likeable horse. Nick Luck is always chirping on about this Giovinco, and I know he's not a horse rider himself, but he's a very, very shrewd judge. And so Giovinco could be certainly worth a little bit of a look here to hit the frame for sure. Real strong traveller. It's just at the business end, if he's done too much throughout the race, I should say, over 3 mile. But no, I think Meeting of the Waters, pretty solid here, but you are going to need luck and running. There'll be plenty of runners here, plenty of carnage, and you need a bit more luck than what he had last time. But interested that Danny Mullins gave this horse such a shout.
You're a little peek behind the curtains there, Paddy, if you're saying that even though Nick Luck has never ridden a horse, he can be a judge, suggesting that people that haven't ridden horses can't be judges, Paddy. Would that be fair to say?
No, not at all. But, people come at it from different angles. But Nick Luck, for a fella who doesn't ride horses, he is a fair old judge, to be fair to him.
I'd say he's good at absolutely everything he does, Nick Luck. Yeah, he'd sicken you, really. And come here, Paddy, one final thing. It wouldn't be a negative if you're going to be judging riders. Probably not a negative that Patrick won't be riding Meeting of the Waters and Mark Welch will be on board. It's a jockey upgrade.
Well, honestly, I do see plenty of knockers for Patrick, but I mean, look, I don't mind him personally, but he does have his knockers, doesn't he, for sure? But as Mark, will this be the first time he'll have ridden this chap?
Ah, yeah, of course, yeah, yeah.
Right, right. Oh, very good. Oh, yeah, got absolutely no negative there at all. But I think it is interesting when you see so deep into the season when JP gets involved in horses. They generally, between him and Frank Berry, they've their homework done, haven't they? And when they put the cash on the table to buy these horses, so they're shrewd operators.
Yeah, I genuinely believe as well, Paul Byrne wouldn't want to sell him one that he doesn't think has a bit in hand. You know, it'd suit him to keep selling him ones that win big races afterwards, because the checkbook's always open. I think, I genuinely would think that Paul would be hoping this horse would go on and win this and win the national, and he can have a few quid in the national market.
He's he's a great character though, isn't he, for Irish racing, Paul Byrne? Like he's got some real quirky ideas, and you've got to take your hat off to him. But obviously he'll have had his pocket well filled here, but he'll put it back in again, won't he, and go again.
Yeah. No, and he will go again. And he had that angle now when I was sitting in the office with him 10 years ago. Like, he's always been a good judge. Now, he'd be a great man to be a judge of judges. He's not coming up with all this himself. He'd listen to a lot of his friends, who would be well known in racing and very good judges. But Paul will listen to everyone, take it in. I remember years ago we were talking about what horse would you like to own now going novice chasing? And he mentioned Fleming Star, who honestly I'd never even heard of. I think he was rated about 110 or something. And Paul had picked him out. But he always had this angle. He wanted to buy horses off smaller yards and put them in the bigger yards, basically put them in Willie. And Emmett has emerged since then. And, no one else was kind of doing that and paying proper money to get half decent ones off smaller yards. And even speaking to him, I wouldn't be talking out of turn. He'd say, if you ever see one like that you think could improve a lot, he'd say send it on, and he'd have a look at it. That's kind of his modus operandi. But he takes information in from everywhere, and he isn't a genius like everyone says he is. He's ingrained in it, and he's always trying to think differently. He's a good fella, so he's good for the game, that's for sure. And good luck to him, I think, getting a few quid off JP a few times, because it works both ways, doesn't it, Paddy?
Of course it does, yeah. And I mean, obviously Emmett gets plenty of credit, doesn't he, for being, this genius, which he is, a very, very young man. But I'd say Paul Byrne now has got plenty of involvement in it as well.
Yeah, I'd say so. And the thing with Emmett, I had a horse, a share in a horse with Emmett, and I was kind of running the syndicate. He's a bad, useless old flat horse. He was no good. But what I was very impressed was Emmett always knew exactly what he had. Every time the horse ran, he'd say, look, he's doing this at home, it might be slightly better. And he'd tell you how the horse is going to run, and he'd be bang on every time. And you can see that with the way the money comes. He knows what he has at home. And there's not a lot of trainers can do that. I think, very, very impressive operation. So I'd be watching with that in mind. If the money comes for Corbett's Cross, that Emmett Mullins yard, they do know when a horse is going well. The next handicap we talk about is the Coral Cup, and all three of the lads have an interest here. Gary, we'll go. Oh, sorry, the Boodles. Sorry, is the next one. So Gary and Paddy are going to give us one. So Gary, we haven't met you on a handicap. What do you fancy in the Boodles?
I think there's only two in this. Two of the biggest cheating horses this season. Head of the market, Larkin in the morning, and Batman Chirac. On Simon Larkin in the morning. I think he will be very tough to beat here. He's been stopped all year, but even in the race, he's been stopped. The form does have some substance in it. Lovely mark, a 1-2-2 here. Joseph is probably one of the best trainer for juvenile hurdlers in Ireland, I would say. If I had one, I'd be certainly sending him his way. He's been laid out for this all year. Ground became really soft, maybe that'd be a negative, but I just think he has so much in hand that what he showed. If you watch back his races, he's finishing just on the bridle. He's been messed around, dropping him back to the races, through the field in the races, and then he's just finishing out so strong. And he's been given a very decent mark. He's been letting lightly. And the other one is the Mullins horse, that Batman Chirac. Again, just hasn't been off a yard, but I just think the difference in the ratings has got to be telling here. And Larkin in the morning, I think, is going to win this. Both of these are graded horses, and they'll go on to a lot more after this, but really strong Larkin in the morning.
Okay, Lark in the morning for Gary in the Boodles. Paddy, you fancied one here as well, or you certainly had a good look at the race. What did you come down on?
Trainers having the Ultima. I would say UK trainers have a bit of a shocker in this one. I think with the juveniles, it's probably far more easier to hide your light under a bushel in Ireland than what the UK guys can do. So it's a bit of a minefield, to be honest, here to see which of the Irish have hit their mark better. Obviously, Lark in the morning, I'd say they were chuffed to bits with the 1-2-2. Looks very, very tempting. Obviously, he's had a few NR engagements there recently, but you know it's been heavy ground each time. So he goes there off the back of not been seen for a while, Lark in the morning, and yeah, he's going to be interesting to see whichever way the ground goes. But I wanted to mention just a few of the UK ones because I honestly wouldn't have a clue about how well the Irish fellas are. But from what I've seen of UK horses, Cass, I did think Liari was interesting here for plenty of weight on his back, but he's a very, very classy horse. He's an Aga Khan. Won't say a cast off, but they're very, very good bloodlines. I do like these Aga Khan type jumpers, and the way he went through the race at Musselburgh last time, you know, he's just got an awful lot of quality, this chap. And you know, Paul Nicholls, he could put one of the young fellas in the yard on him, but you'd be pretty sure the H. Cobden will be jocked up to ride this fella, even with 11 stone 12. So I do think he's pretty classy. Liari, for owners, these Smith brothers, who, you know, they've got some good horses for the Nicholls team this time round. We've got to give a mention as well to the other Mulrine horse, Ose Parterre of Mark Brazil's. He's a very, very free-going horse. If the ground was to dry out, he could maybe leave an ordinary run behind him last time, but he's a proper free-goer now. He really is. With a well-run race on some better ground, he could run well at a price. And I just wanted to mention one last one of Gary Moore's. Another horse that'll have to improve is Royal Way, but he has done that on each occasion. He's got plenty of size and substance about him, this fella. And although it was only a very narrow margin that he won at Ludlow last time, he's a very professional racehorse, this. And the winner, Ithagazaro, absolutely slooshed up at Newbury on terrible ground just the other day. So there's a bit of substance to the form. A mark of 119, I think, would give him a really, really solid chance for Gary Moore. So he could hit the frame. But my first selection, even with 11 stone 12, I think Liari is definitely, and as the handicapper thinks, the best of the UK here.
Okay, he's won 2 listed races under penalty the last time, so you know ostensibly he could be better than a 134 horse, that's for sure. Liari for Paddy and Lark in the morning for Gary. The one I thought, I've been kind of watching them all season. I'd say Paddy as well, your Royal Way probably won't get in. 22 run here, he's 29, he needs 7 to come out. I'm sweating on Bright Legend, who needs 4 to come out. If he gets in, he was kind of well back behind Bunting, was beaten 10 lengths behind him at Limerick. Then ran well behind High Wind, his proper horse only beat 6 lengths. And that race at Naas that always seems to show up with the winner of this. He was just he was in front too soon, I think, and he finished second behind Eagle Fang. He's owned by Justin Carty, who won this race, of course, of Band of Outlaws. So you'd wonder, has this been the plan all year? He's been running pretty well, just well enough to get up the mark, and he's really classy flat animal. Like, he's rated nearly 90 on the flat, and he's in here off 121. He's 33 to 1 there now. He's actually jocked up and everything. Daniel King's jocked up, claiming 3, so he'll have absolutely no weight. There could be a punt on him, or it might not be a plot, but I think I'd probably take the chance at 33s, and you're going to get your money back anyway if he's balloted out. Needs 1 to come out now. Actually, he's number 23 on the list, so he's probably going to get in, you would think, or you would hope. I'd give.
What was that winner? What was that winner that Jay Carty owned? Be saying, Cass?
The Band of Outlaws,
right?
Where Joseph had him, so
Right.
he has targeted the race before. I think as well, in my head, Band of Outlaws might have won the Limerick race that Bright Legend was placed in behind Bunting. So now that's, you know, different yard and everything. Look, I could be way off, but I'd say Bright Legend's a load of ability on the flat, and this owner has gone for it before. Interestingly enough, actually, talking about Paul Byrne. Paul Byrne used to have a share in it, whether he does or not, and he doesn't anymore on the list, but it was just a Carty, Paul Byrne, and Patrick John O'Brien until February this year. Now it's just Justin and Patrick. So Look, there's some shrewd connections there. I just think he could be interesting, could be a plot. Probably not, but I'd sound like a genius if it was.
I think that Nace race, that you mentioned, Cass, I think has that got a fair bit of previous with the Boodles as far as winners go.
Oh, I think maybe the last 4 winners came from that race. I mean, the last 4 winners are Jazzy Matty. He definitely did. I think Brazil did. I think Jeff Kidder did. And I think Aramax did. So I think actually the last 4 winners of this race came out of that race. Eagle Fang won that race. I think he was still in the Boodles as well. I'll just have a quick check while we're talking about him. If I can type Eagle on my... Yeah, so he's got 127. Bill Durkin's horse. He's 14 to 1 shot. He might have a bit too weight, you'd imagine. But yeah, savage record, Paddy. Probably too good to be true, realistically. It's hardly going to throw up the winner 5 years in a row, but you're right, Paddy. It's always good prep for this. We will move on to the Coral Cup on the Wednesday. We have 2 more handicaps to get through, and then I'll give you the 2 race warning, lads. I'm going to ask you for your naps so you won't be caught cold over the 2 days. Coral Cup, Cian Kirby, what do you fancy here?
Yeah, obviously wide open race. It's probably the hardest handicap of the festival. It's usually a cavalry charge to go down there. But I just thought Nicky Henderson trained good Dovey the Great. He just looks like a progressive horse, and I think he could be a bit well handicapped. I mean, he won the first time out of Ascot. He defied a 2-year break. Won a decent novice hurdle there. That was placed behind Go Dante at Cheltenham. So he has course form. And then he was 4th in the Betfair hurdle. Stayed on very late, made a lot of ground there. Business end of the race. I just think he was ridden more prominently. Nearly could have gotten the win. I think 10 to 1 is a fair price, and I think he's the pick for me here.
Yeah, if Nicky's coming back into form, a lot of shrewd judges putting this fill up, and he was definitely eye-catching in the Betfair hurdle. Definitely wants a trip. Gary Connolly, the Coral Cup.
Yeah, with Sean Mulryan in the Boodles, and he's going to get a double up here built on Ballymore wins the Coral Cup. He's an okay bumper horse, and started the season back in November behind Slay Steel. That was a good maiden hurdle, and he hasn't looked back since. He's won a Limerick Point to Town. Very easy. Martin Brasso targets this race. They're always off on their lives, and I think there's a lot more to come from this fella. And he's been shoring up the whole time in the lead up to this, and I think he'll definitely be on off single figures on the day, and he's going to be bang there. So yeah, Sean Mulryan double the 2 handicap.
Sean Mulryan, as if he doesn't have enough good in his life, he's going to have a double here at the Cheltenham Festival on the Tuesday and the Wednesday, according to Gary Connolly. Paddy Aspell, the Coral Cup.
Yeah, he needs a few to come out, doesn't he? Built by Ballymore's 26 can run, Cass. I wonder.
Yeah, but this race, Paddy, you'd have an awful lot double entered in the Martin Pipe, so you'd be thinking that he'll be okay here.
Yeah, I had a couple here. I think that Gary is absolutely spot on. I'll tell you a story, boys, and this is no word of a lie. That my old man had €1,000 bet with Marine. Marine said this thing was useless because he is so hopeless in the mornings at home. And the old man said this thing will win a race. No, not that how good he would be, but that he would win a race. And he had £1,000 bet with him. And he is absolutely hopeless in the mornings. But if you watch him on the track, the day even when Conor Brazel won on him down at Limerick, he looked like it was going to be hard work turning in. As soon as he moved on him, away he went. After 12 lengths, he won by Limerick. And then at Punchestown the last day under JJ, 12 lengths again. Honestly, this is another horse where he's very hard to judge how deep the tank is here. He's got an awful lot of ability. He's been a slow burner, but you've probably got to look at his name as well. You know, they tend to save the better names for these better horses. But I would say that Marine was just so disappointed with what he was saying or what he was seeing in the mornings. He was getting angry and said this, he could never win a race. But anyway, he's 1-2 now. He is very, very interested. And especially if the ground does stay, it's not going to stay maybe is what it is now. But if there's plenty of cut in the ground, he is definitely a great bet. So if plenty of these have got double entries, Cass, I thought there was another one here of Nicky Henderson's Lucky Place. Is down 44 at the minute. Now, I do want to see a bit of an upturn, hopefully, at the weekend in stable form. 1 from 15, I've got Nicky. in the last fortnight. And that winner the other day is just a very, very good horse. And sometimes these good ones win despite stable form. But I think if James Bowen could have had another go at that race at Cheltenham last time, I mean, he tried to get into a bit of a dogfight with Gidley Park, and you're just not going to come off the better of a battle with Gidley Park. And that day he was only beaten half a length, kick clear at a certain stage. And prior to that, at Taunton, finished 3/4 of a length behind Jeremy Scott's Golden Ace, who is looking very, very good, I've got to say. And so I do think that if Lucky Place gets in here, going to get some lovely pace to run at. He'd be another one, could really run pretty nice at a nice price. But no, looking forward to seeing built by Ballymore next week, albeit I'd fancy him a good bit more, Cass, if there was a nice bit of cut in the ground.
Yeah, hard to tell with the ground, but as we say, it's bordering on heavy at the moment, but in a very dry forecast. The last handicap we're going to talk about, just one small thing on the Carl Cup. Actually, I was on a panel with Liam Burke, father of Johnny Burke, and Liam Burke, famously the oldest man to win a race in Ireland ever. He was 60 something, riding a bumper winner. But he reckoned that Johnny is kind of given the vibes that his best chance of the week is Might Eye in the Carl Cup. So I know David Jennings is a big fan of that horse. David Jennings, friend of the Racehour. So that was interesting, given that Johnny would have quite a nice book of rides, but Might Eye in the Carl Cup was what he thought could be his best chance of the week. The Grand Annual. Sorry, Paddy.
Just another one, Cass. Just a yard. They're having no runners. I love to see yards having runners, so you can get some sort of an idea of where they're
Harry
at.
Fry never runs horses, as far as I can see. Anyway, like even if he has a good one, he'll only run him twice a year anyway. But I know what you're saying. Yeah, he's only had one horse and pulled up in the last 2 weeks, which you'd be very, very worried about. You're right. You're 100% right there. Yeah, and it'd be very concerning for all his horses for the best of Paddy.
Yeah, I mean, you can't say, Cheltenham's coming up and saving horses. He's not going to run the whole yard at Cheltenham. Why hasn't he been having runners? That is something. I know people have their own preferences, but I like to get some sort of a gauge on health-wise, maybe where a yard is at.
Yeah, 100%. That's a very valid, interesting point about Harry Fry, especially for fans of Might Eye and the likes of Gidley Park, who would be his best chances. And Love Envoy as we go into Cheltenham. Grand Annual Law was one of the best handicaps of the year. And Paddy, while we're talking to you, what do you think of this one?
Well, I gave the UK horse a good mention, Madara.
Yeah.
He had a plate entry as well, but he's only a 5-year-old. That was the thing. I just love the way he went through the Leopardstown race. Very, very low mileage sort of type, and then when he jumped the last, really gave him a smack, and he absolutely took off. He didn't just fall in. He absolutely bolted up. I know he's got more. He's got more on his plate here, Madara. But the fact that I know the UK trainers were getting plenty of stick for not trying to be competitive and go over and try and win some money at the DRF. I mean, Sophie Leach, she must have been fairly confident. They weren't turning up for the day out, and they were justified, and he landed a nice prize, and there could be just some more improvements to come. There was another one I did have marked down though, as well as Madara. Where was he gone? Grand Annual Madara. Yeah, another. Sorry, I'm not getting paid by Ben Pauling, I promise. But everybody will have Harper's Brook down as a bit of a horse to avoid. But I mean, Ben Jones was so good on this fella the last day. You've just got to keep the bit up in this fella's mouth for as long as possible. He's got so much ability, but as soon as you pick the stick up and start bullying this thing, honestly, the handbrake just comes on. I know you're not going to win a race like this on the bridle, but if he's thereabouts and can be just nursed, lovely race and weight of 10 stone 12, he's got so much ability. Harper's Brook, and like this race, Cass, if they go 1 million here and he's passing horses, he'll just travel stronger and stronger, and chances are you'd want to back this chap each way, because he's going to have to battle at some point here. But he's got so much ability, he's going to travel that deep into a race that he's going to land himself bang there with some sort of a chance. So we'll definitely give him a mention, and the very, very low mileage Madara. So a couple of UK runners.
Yeah, I think if you back Harper's Brook, definitely laying running as a 50 yards from the line, he could turn around and go back and jump the last again. That fella, I wouldn't trust him at all. I do like what you're saying about Madara, and if you look at the winners of this race, they tend to be handicap chasers in form rather than plot jobs. The likes of Next Sensation, Sky Pirate, Like they were coming in here, even Mascada were coming in here, haven't run really well in big handicaps. So Madara, I agree with you, Paddy. I think could be a 150 plus horse. I think 12-1 is very fair about Madara. And Cian Kirby, you're the last man down here. The last tip of the day, apart from the naps, what do you fancy in the Grand Annual?
Yeah, I'd be all in Madara as well. I just think wildly progressive. Only a 4-year-old. Course and distance win at Cheltenham. Was very good at Leopard Sound last time out. I think 12-1 is a very fair price. I could see that going off a lot shorter. I'm not sure is the target to go for the Grand Annual or the Plate. I think it's the same price in each race. Not sure what the plan is, but yeah, geez, 12-1. I think even you nearly can say back in that at 6 or 7-1. I think it's a great price.
Yeah, I hope they come here. I don't think it's the best ever Grand Annual, that's for sure. And Gary Connolly, we'll just say you're tipping that as well, so that we have a four timer across the board with all the panelists. Is that fair, Gary? You'll go in behind us.
I'll go in behind the lads. Yep.
Go on then, lads. We'll have a big winner. No one's listening at this stage anyway, so it doesn't matter. And we move on to the naps. Gary, you've been quiet for a couple of minutes. You've had a chance to think. You could tell us if you want day 1, day 2, whatever, and give us your main one.
Larkin Morning wins, Boodles, bit of the Ballymore wins, Coral, win double, job done.
Sean Mulryan will be retiring if he needs to. Yes. Paddy,
I'm
tell us that.
From there,
If he's hard up for a few quid, God love him. So the Ballymore double for Gary, Larkin in the morning and built by Ballymore. Cian Kirby.
Yeah, on the shoes they'll go with Jericho de Ripone to get us off the flyer, and then on Wednesday that race we just talked about, Madara for the Grand Annual, I think 12-1.
And if you were to pick one, Cian, the strongest one, Madara maybe.
I got Madara, yeah.
Very good, very good. And Paddy Aspell, your nap on day 1 or 2 or both?
I'm going to go another Mulryan winner on Tuesday with Embassy Gardens.
Very good.
I just think he looks far more manageable and mentally grown up this time round. Very, very early days over fences for him. And then on the second day, I was a little bit tied here, but I was going to go a little bit boring. I just cannot see past El Fabiolo.
El Fabiolo for Paddy. So that's Larkin in the morning, built by Barmore, Jericho de Ripone, Madara, Embassy Gardens, and El Fabiolo are the ones given the big mentions by our panel. I would say your father better take the €1,000 and do a Trixie on the 3 Ballymore horses there, because it could be a right party in the Aspell household, I'd say, Paddy, if all of them click.
But I'm just talking to him the other day, he's going over with a fair team. Obviously, Brazel, Martin's got a few, Joseph's got Larkin in the morning, and yeah, just very, very strong team. And I know Martin's had plenty of ordinary enough luck. I mean, both his runners at Cheltenham last year, both in his second. So they're certainly due one, that's for sure.
Very good, very good. Well, that wraps it up. Sponsored by BetUK. Thanks to our panelists, Cian Kirby, Gary Connolly, and Paddy Aspell. We'll be back tomorrow with day 3 and 4 of the Cheltenham Festival.
Relentless, remorseless, and pounding Corden Star into submission.